Welcome, everybody. We're going to get things going here. As my colleague and I and Virgil know, we've been having a day with Zoom, but we are ready to roll into it, and I could not be more excited. So for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Kate Swanson. I'm the Interpretation and Public Engagement Educator at the Rockwell Museum. And this year, the museum is exploring through our events and programs the myriad ways in which artists respond to, engage with, or interrupt the natural, built, and social environment. And I know that, we're doing some more different time zones, coast to coast today, which is so fun. And we're joining from all over the place tonight, but we do want to acknowledge that an important element of the Rockwell Museum's environment is that we're located on the ancestral land of the Seneca, one of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois Confederacy. Our speaker today is going to focus on Indigenous history in a very different environment and landscape from the woodland environment that we inhabit here. And we're going to talk about how he uses that history to connect to imagining and imaging the future and what the environment could look like. It's my great pleasure, possibly one might say a fangirl moment, to introduce Virgil Ortiz to you today as our speaker. Virgil is one of the most avant-garde artists of our time, and of course, many of our community members are lucky enough to be familiar with his work as it lives on view in the museum, as well as in a mural on Corning's north side. And that, of course, was painted in collaboration with High School Learning Center students and the I'art project of the Rockwell Museum. Through his exploration of working with clay and various media graphics, fashion, film, and video, Ortiz fuses historic events with sci-fi and fantasy, yielding imagery that is both provocative and futuristic. Raised in a creative environment filled with storytelling, collecting clay, gathering wild plants, and producing figurative pottery, he remains influenced by his mother and grandmother, who are both renowned Cochiti Pueblo potters. Ortiz's works are exhibited in museum collections around the world, including the Netherlands, Paris, Smithsonian Institution, Virginia Museum of Fine Art, Denver Museum, and of course, the Rockwell Museum. Virgil's innovative artwork bridges past and present, interweaving the importance of the cultural and natural environment in the lives of Pueblo peoples and American history. At the core of his artistic practice is educating viewers about the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. Occurring around 100 years before the Revolutionary War, the Pueblo Revolt was America's first revolution that had enormous consequences for the southwestern United States. Under the face of Spanish colonialism, the 46 Pueblos united under the leadership of Pope, a medicine man and religious leader of the Pueblo Oke Owinga, translating to place of the strong people. I apologize if that was very mispronounced. In 1680, Pope organized the Pueblo Revolt against the Spanish. According to legend, to coordinate the timing of the uprising, he and his followers sent runners to each Pueblo with knotted deerskin strips. One knot was to be untied each day, and the revolt would begin the day the last one was untied. However, the Spaniards arrested 2 of the runners, and the Pueblos were quickly notified to accelerate the revolt. The attacks began on August 10th, 2 days before the last knot would have been untied. The 46 Pueblos fought in solidarity and overthrew their Spanish oppressors, driving out conquistadors and Franciscan priests. The Spaniards took refuge at Santa Fe. The besieging Indians cut off their water supply, but soon permitted them to leave the area. The Pueblo Revolt helped to ensure the survival of Pueblo culture and shaped the history of the Southwest. For 12 years, the Pueblo people had controlled their territories. Though New Mexico remained a Spanish colony, the revolt helped in the reduction of atrocities that were inflicted on Pueblo people. The practices, support systems, and ideas from traditional lifeways remain more intact for Pueblo people than any other Indian group in the country. And this is remarkable considering that Pueblos have had the longest contact with Europeans and been subject to 3 external powers, the governments of Spain, Mexico, and the United States. Nevertheless, New Mexico Pueblos and their cultures have survived. The 19 New Mexico Pueblos of present day and the Hopi in Arizona attribute the ability to continue their traditional way of life to the Pueblo Revolt's success and its leader, Pope. Virgil takes historic Pueblo Revolt warriors and has transformed them into futuristic superheroes and guardians that continue to fight for justice. Virgil's realm of indigenous futurism features characters that revisit the land, which has been plagued by nuclear fallout. They're adorned with gas masks since Earth's atmosphere is no longer safe to breathe. They're armed with weaponry, alluding to the artillery of the conquistadors. And the central character to the revolt story and saga is Tahu, the blind archer, which will come up again later in the program. So with that history lesson to frame things, I will stop talking and turn it over to Virgil to take you through his process and some highlights of incredible multidisciplinary projects he's worked on over the last few years. We'll have time for a Q&A and hopefully a special treat at the end as well. So with that, I'm gonna get us started.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys for joining. I'm excited to be working with you all at the Rockwell Museum again, and hopefully I get back out to CMOG as well. But thank you, Kate, for this opportunity and giving me this chance to explain a little bit more about what I do and what my family does. So as you explained earlier, like I was born into a family of potters on our mother's Severina side of the family. So everybody, all my siblings that were around with our mom making and working with clay every day, just kind of grew up with it. So I've been doing it since I was a kid. These as an example of the some of the family members that are making pottery. We lost our dad, Guadalupe, in 2015. But my two older sisters, Janice and Joyce, niece and nephews all dabble in clay as well. Next slide. So everything that we do to create this pottery, we use traditional methods and materials, meaning that we have to go dig all our own clay and all the materials that we use. Next slide. So this is just an example of how we prepare the different types of the materials that we use. The clay has to be gathered, and it takes a whole year to let it dry out, because when we get it, it's still wet and moist and it's very dense. So we have to let it completely dry out. Otherwise you won't be able to work with it, or it's too pure and too sticky to do it. So this is me cracking up the clay into 1/4-inch sizes, dumping it into a plastic bin, layering the clay, and slowly adding water where it rehydrates itself. That's the only way that we're able to work with the clay. So the next video. After this one is what we have to get another material called the Pumice Stone. So again, we have to gather my nieces and nephews to get this done, because it's a lot of hard work. And it's another part of the Pueblo that we get this, and it's just pure pumice as well. So it comes out of the earth very powder-like and very pure and already fine, but we still have to put it through 2 sieves, like 3 times, to make it nice and fine enough to mix with the clay. This is a very dusty process, and we should be wearing masks, but it's just fun to incorporate all my nieces and nephews when we're doing this. Next one. So it's kind of fun to really to make sure that all my nieces and nephews, anybody that wants to learn from the Pueblo, to show them where we get the clay, where we the whole process, because it's like, I mean, growing up with it is it's a if you're not growing up with it, it's like a really hard process, but I know what it entails. So at this point in my life, I'm very comfortable with it. But once we get the timber back to our home, I throw on my combat boots, do a little dance on it, and brush it up. And like when doing this part, it's like you can already see that it's already getting into a fine point, and I add a little bit of mist water on it so it'll control the dust around it. And then, like I said, I have to put it through 2 sieves to get it as fine as possible, get all the little rocks out, and it comes out like consistency of like flour, which is pretty cool. So after we have those 2 materials ready to go, the pumice and the clay, then it's time to mix it. So we really don't have a average of how much each of the materials that we do. We protect the clay a lot. So if I know I'm going to make a size, I don't know, like a 15-inch jar or something, I more or less know the amount of clay that we use. So then we have to combine both of this, and adding the pumice to the clay helps it from shrinking and also prevents a lot of the cracks during the drying stage. The next one is the wild spinach paint, which is the only vegetal part of the whole process. So again, I have to gather my whole family to do it because it's very a tedious process to do this. So we have to go out and gather only the leaves, bring it back home, get the huge boiling pots. And this is a small batch, so usually it'll take over a week to boil a large batch of like maybe 8 33-gallon size garbage bag fulls of the leaves. But once it boils down, evaporates, bring it indoors, cook it on the stove top, and finally it gets really thick, and then we throw the corn husk down on the table, and then we distribute the paint on it. So the next one is the process of the red clay. We have to slip it with white clay slip. So what we do is we heat it up, each piece in the oven at 350, like we're baking muffins or something, right? But we heat it up, and you just apply it in very thin layers until the whole piece is completely covered and it all turns white. So at that point, after it's completely covered all in white, then we let it cool down, take it out, and rag polish it. So once it's rag polished, it goes from a super matte surface to a semi-gloss, and you cannot touch it even though your hands are super clean. There's still oils on your hands. So the firing process is the last process of this traditional pottery making. And when you're painting this piece and you accidentally touch it with your finger somewhere on the pot, it won't show up until after the firing, and you have a big old smudge mark on it. So it's just kind of funny when my little nieces and nephews are around, some of them like run to the pot when I'm painting one, like making a sandwich or something, and they're like, you see these tiny little fingerprints, so they know they're not supposed to touch it. But it's kind of cool that they're around the whole process and seeing what's going down. But for the firing process, it probably takes about 4 hours to do. So what you're just seeing is that it's covered with, we use cow manure to use it, aspen and cedar wood. So the piece is above the ground, like 8 inches on a grate. We fire one piece at a time. We put chicken wire around the piece and leave like maybe 5 inches around the piece where then it supports the cow manure, and you kind of build like a beehive or an igloo around it. And then we put the fuel around the cow manure, ignite it from all sides, and it just burns from the outside inward, and that creates our pit fire kiln. Or when it's we also have like metal buckets that we could also fire in, and that's a little bit safer, but that again, that will limit the size of what you can put in there. The next slide. So growing up, like I had seen, maybe I was like maybe 17 or so when I had first seen this Ben Wittig photo, and it was from the late 1800s, and it just really stuck with me. But when I went and done shows like in Prague or Amsterdam or Paris, I had really kind of had this image burned in my head, and with the background that you see it's a painted canvas. But then when I went to go see the Charles Bridge in the Czech Republic, resembled it exactly. So I had challenged my family to help me revive these pieces, because like Kojiki people stopped making this type of style, which is all based on social commentary. So all of these cool pieces that you see are like opera singers and circus sideshow characters. And so we all picked one of these pieces and started to revive it. And the next slide. And this is what the final outcome was. And it was picked up by the Cartier Museum and is now in their permanent collection. So that's pretty cool too, for me to revive this image and these pieces and make sure that that stays alive. But next one. So it's like my 2 points in my life that I feel that I'm here for is to educate the world about the Pueblo Revolt. And I know most of you guys probably have not heard about the Pueblo Revolt, and that's usually true everywhere I travel, except for in the European countries. They know exactly our history, but Americans don't. So when I do shows here in the States and metro cities, Los Angeles, New York, most of the time they have no idea what the Pueblo Revolt is. And when I do shows in Santa Fe, they still don't know what it is. So it's kind of a little bit embarrassing that we don't know our own history, but it's not taught in schools. It's not in our history books. So what I feel is like I wanted to see how I could tell and reach the next generation, next slide, of how to really show them our history. And I was like, okay, duh, feature film, like, we'll all match up with like the Avengers or Black Panther and everything that you see out there now in Star Wars, right? So next slide. So the main character that I wrote the movie script about is her name is Sta'u. She's leader of the Blind Archers, and I wanted to really concentrate on a woman heroine that would stand for women empowerments, and so give all of the indigenous little girls a superhero to look up to. So she was born, and she's the leader of the Blind Archers. Next. So I was able to take all the different types of work that I dabble in, and people often wonder, like, what are you, like, all these different types of aliens or creatures and stuff, like, what are you doing? But I totally based it off writing the movie script when it happened in two different time dimensions, in 1680 and 2180. So telling it in these two different time dimensions allows me to bring in really sci-fi superhero characters. And at this point, I love body painting. I'll try to anything, go to school on YouTube, university, and learn how to do all this stuff. But it all works together in the end. Next. A lot of the students that I do work with, I encourage them to try body paint and, just whatever they want to challenge themselves in, because you always end up using it later in the future. But these are some examples of my friends that are the models that help me bring these characters to life. And we have a blast doing it. And once we're done with the body painting, all these characters, like for instance, this character is called the Translator, and it's kind of like a Yoda kind of type of character where it's able to jump in between 1680 and 2180 and help that pull off the future Pueblo Revolt. So it's an example of what we do behind the scenes. And then once I get those images, video them, take the photography, and then bring them into Photoshop. And then now you start seeing like what the final outlooks, you turn them colors or whatever. So these are some of the images that you will see when you're looking at my work. Next slide. So it all comes together, and now eventually then again, one medium inspires the next. So then you'll see clay taking influence from a live model. Next one. And then all of the costuming that I do for the characters in the movie, you'll see them first like this on my friends and the models, and then eventually I do ready to wear looks. So like actually what I'm wearing now, this is like from my fall 21 line, like some of the hoodies that are coming out have these characters like the Translator on it. So it goes from costume design to actually ready to wear. So that's where all of these designs are coming from. Next slide. Again, using Photoshop, and then taking images of the characters and then repeating them onto the surface of the pots just helps me tell the story. Next slide. And this one is part of all the foam fabrication that I learned, again, from watching videos on YouTube. So these are the Castilians, which are the characters in the movie. So a lot of my friends, again, come and photograph them. Next one, next slide. And it's really cool. I incorporate when I work at universities, different places around the States, and it's really cool to be able to talk to these students and incorporate them, helping me. Like what we're doing now is to finish off the different costuming for an exhibition that took place at the Fine Arts Center at Colorado College in Colorado Springs. So it's really fun to have the students there next to me finishing these costuming. So at the same time, I'm teaching them how to talk with the curators, with the directors, and I'm showing them how much work it takes to pull together an exhibition and how many people it takes. But they get the experience of like whatever they're studying in college. Like a lot of them were in costuming and fashion and Southwest studies, but they're all learning this whole process with me. And in the end, they get to see their work displayed in my the exhibition that we're working on. Next slide. These are some of the costumings that we did, and this was from a fashion show that was all based on recycled material. So like the left two images, the characters, the aeronauts, I had I think the Fine Arts Center had put up 5 different outdoor billboards, and I happened, when they took down the billboards, I was able to get my hands on the material, the actual billboard. So it's a very crinkly plastic kind of material, but I recycled that, and that's what these 2 costumes are made of. Next. And again, interacting, making them interact with each other, the Photoshop, the models, along with the characters in clay. Next. And like I said earlier, like again, they influence each other. If I dress the model first and then I'll make him in clay, or either sometimes I build them in clay first and then dress the models up to match them. Next. More examples of just the black and white painting, all the different revival types from the late 1800s, like the center figure. I've always wanted to design like a circus show, right? So this was my imagination of all the acrobats and these characters with like what their costumings will look like if I got my hands on. I was able to design one of these shows, right? But like going back to the 1800s, a lot of these cool characters were all based on circus sideshow characters that were the newly laid railroads that came through our area. So once the railroads were laid, it brought all these operas and these circuses, sideshows that were available to the people. So our Cochiti ancestors captured their caricatures in clay. So you'll see all these old school circus performers, like tattooed bodies and Siamese twins and all, but this is just an updated, again, reviving, going along the social commentary aspect of what our people did back then. Next. So I don't know if you guys recognize who this group is and this person. It was just awesome that I was able to really reach a different amount of people, and I was able to meet Nona Hendricks, and she and her group LaBelle back in the day just had some good news to announce, and the Library of Congress just added Lady Marmalade into the National Recording Registry. Next slide. So this was awesome. Like, I think we all know that "Gitchy Gitchy Yeah 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 Yeah" song, right? Is really pretty cool, and I'm just proud of them. And I was able to work with Nona. Next, she had asked me to. She had visited Indian Market one year, and it was just really cool that she had found me and came to my exhibition. And that year I had my aeronauts on the cover, and then she was like, please design me a costume for, something that we're doing. And it was just funny because the Kennedy Center had approached me to do a lecture for the opening of the Reach new building at the Kennedy Center. And at the same time, they had reached out to her to be on the futuristic float that opened in the celebration of the new wing, which is crazy. And we're going to the same place at the same time. So I was like, yes, so let's go get your costume together. So I was on the internet looking at thigh-high boots. I was like, Nona, can you wear 6-inch heels? She was like, who do you think I am? Of course I can. So as soon as she wanted to be all decked out, because the aeronauts are usually all black. Very dark, stealthy, awesome, slinky characters, but she said she was going to be on a float that was very futuristic and it had to be chromed out. So I said, okay, you're going to be a chrome aeronaut. So this was my original design for her. And next, well, we made it to the Kennedy Center, and lo and behold, there she is in all her glory. She looked like a big old disco ball in the middle of the day, which was so cool. One of the students that took some of my, well, actually, it was just part of the public. Foster Romano was out in Colorado Springs while I was at Colorado College. He turned out to be the super genius, and he worked with metal. So I brought him on my team. He's now the head of my fabrication department. I think he's 16 years old now, and he makes all of my metal, all the weapons that all my characters carry. So that's Foster Romano there, and Nona dressed up. Next. And here's just an example of her when she was performing in front of the Kennedy Center. it was pretty cool to watch everything come alive and how she rocked it. Her voice is amazing, and just the whole thump of the bass and her track that she sang was just amazing. And to be a part of this whole experience was so cool. So now we're friends and we work together at different places, including the Met. So that's Nona Hendricks. Congratulations. The next one. So this is an example of how I show how all of the different geometric designs that all of the pottery designs from our family, how it translates and how it lends itself well to garments. Next. So you'll see all the different types of distinct style. It was like classic, like pottery, that timeless style of all the different redefined designs, the V-maze design that lends itself very well to fashion. So this is where it incorporates everything all together. But in the end, all of the different mediums, next slide, they all come together and they all come back and tell the story of where these designs came from, which are Coche de Pueblo designs, my family designs. And also then it leads back for, once I get the attention of the fashionista, educate them about where it came from, and then it leads back to telling the story of the Pueblo Revolt. So it's a continuous storytelling process. Next slide, which is really fun to work with. Next slide, some more examples of how it translates. These again are some of the V-maze designs, the black ones. Those will be released for the 21 fall and winter line. So look for those coming out in the future. Next, and these are samples of the leather work, the accessories that I do, duffel bags, leather cases for your tech toys and all. Next slide. And working with Donna Karen gave me a big schooling. I was like going to for the Fashion Institute of Technology in like 2 months, and I was able to collaborate with her. So same thing again, she hired me to put my designs onto her silhouettes and her dresses for the 2003 spring collection. And I just about fell over because the head model for that was Mila Jovovich, and big fan of her. Next. So it's just exciting to see the whole process of it, from the sketches to the cut and sew, the printing, and then all of a sudden we have the final fashion show in New York Fashion Week, and meeting all these top models. It just blew my mind to see them wearing my designs. Next. I wish I was that age again. But it's just kind of cool for Donna Karen to give me some press and a magazine that she used to do, and it really explained exactly what I'm telling you guys now, of how like all these designs came about, and I was able to teach the fashionistas about the designs from Coche de. Next. And it went, then all of a sudden, once the fashion show went completely, all the different Vogue magazines, the fashion magazines started having them on their covers, and we had to go and do press and talk everything. So when the actual line came out, I was able to go to her her flagship store, which is Madison Avenue, and redesign the whole store for that season. So we also did a home line with duvet covers and pillows, and it was pretty cool and exciting to see that. Next slide. So again, working with institutions like the Smithsonian, it was just really awesome to be able to design jewelry. And the next slide, and again, it shows exactly how these designs translate to now metal. So again, like with the students I work with, I always try to tell them, don't put up hurdles in front of you, imaginary hurdles. They're not there to begin with. There's no doubt. Erase everything in your head. Like, know that you can do whatever you put your mind to it, and just go for it. You're gonna fail, but those failures are our best teachers. So just go for it and try it, and you'll figure it out quicker the more times you fail. So don't be afraid of failing, just go for it. Next. Some more examples of how to translate to metal. Next one. And the Taboo series is an ongoing series of what I'm doing. The next slide, please. And it's all about going back to the 1800 pieces of what our Coche de Pueblo people created, but it was always about making social commentary on what was going around in the world. So that kind of leaves the door wide open for me to clay to tell the stories of everything that's going around in my life. And this piece I made, we lost our dad and our mother to cancer, but our mother passed in 2007 and our dad in 2015. And but this, he hated to go on the MRI machines. So this piece, if you, I call it strength. And if you were to lay on its backside, it represents our dad going into the MRI machines. And he would always make fun of himself because he started losing his hair, but he would have all these different markings on his bodies where they're putting the radiation in. So this is all the markings on her, and it's like a prayer for the never-ending quest to find a cure for cancer. This is what this piece stands for. Next. And it's always hard to talk about subjects. So this whole taboo series is really cool. If you have a piece of art in front of you, you're able to discuss it and have a whole conversation about it. And this piece is called Alternative. And I wanted to tell the story of like how all these iconic performers from the 80s were at the top of their game. Culture Club, Grace Jones, Dead or Alive, all these people, RuPaul, and I happen to have met each one of them personally in different places around the US. But I wanted to, this is one pot, so each side of the pot is painted with a different person. But the one in the middle, his name is Wewa, and he's from the 1800s and is an iconic image of Wewa, and he's a two-spirit. But I wanted to comment on how Indigenous people hold people regards, and I wanted to place them all together so they tell their own story. And again, now the times that we're living in now, the LGBTQ community are struggling to live basically. So I always wanted to have this pot tell all of the story of how the fight to keep on living in equality. Next. This one is a commentary about, it's called Cyberbully. So I designed this piece with a famous hairdo. He's sitting on the pot, tweeting at 5 a.m. On the can at 5 a.m. So this is a commentary again showing how using the clay to talk about a political situation. Next. So I painted a Twitter icon on right above his behind, and that was kind of my prediction of what was going to eventually take him down. So this is that commentary on a cyberbully of what is now became a reality. And I made these pieces in 2016. Next. And this one is called Rise Up. And again, it's painted, it has a different scene on each side. And the first one on the left-hand side, it shows him. I painted this because it was during the Dakota Access Pipeline that was going on, and the black snake represents the oil pipeline, and him riding it, bundles of cash, but not knowing that the pipeline is going to come back to bite him in the back. Middle section was where the snakes have now infiltrated him with all the fracking going on, and the snakes are eating him from the inside out. The last image on the right was my prediction was about women protesting and marching, and I had painted this in November, but then in January, all of a sudden the Women's March happened. So my prediction was that women would have the honor to remove this person. So you see a woman's hand holding him by the back of his jacket and tossing him out. Next one. Going back to where we're at now, where most of you guys are from Courtney, and I had the awesome opportunity to go work at the Courtney Museum of Glass. And the next slide. And while I was working with the CMOC team, it was kind of funny because I had done pre-visits, and they let me go through the whole collection and look at all the different types of glass and colors and textures. And it was funny because they said, "What color do you want to work with?" And I chose this specific red, and they all laughed at me, the whole team. And I don't know why they laughed, but I found out at the end was that it turned out that I had to choose the most expensive color to work with, a type of red glass. So that was just kind of a joke that of course that would happen. But to be able to bring my geometrical designs, like 2D designs, and place them on a glass, like in a 3D design, blew my mind. And it was just awesome to witness and work with all of these master glass blowers because it's almost like telepathy going on. And it took like maybe 8 people to build this piece here. Once I got it home to Coach D, I was able to sculpt ceramic characters with just that and then use it as a topper for the piece. And what's going down in the middle is an arrow and an arrowhead. Next. Some more examples of the different tendrils of the glass that we made while we're at CMOG. And then these are shot those at signs, and then these ones are characters as well. The aeronauts, Tau and the Castilian, so they all kind of work together and have their characters on them, have different, like the ropes we're talking about earlier on the one on the right side. So that's, you know, the countdown to when the revolt happened. But they're just different ways of how to tell and continue telling the story. Next one. This one is a massive piece. I love doing this. Looks like a big old flying saucer, but I wanted to have translator on this piece here, but that's who that piece represents. And the final one that I think you guys probably seen was the Devon, leader of the herd, is now at the Rockwell. Do you guys have it there, Kate? I think you guys do.
Yeah, we do. It just went on loan somewhere else, actually. And hopefully someone else can tell me in the chat where it went to, because I can't remember, but it just went out. But I want to say that I want to say it went to Santa Fe. And I can't remember if it's a glass native art show or.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So he came to the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture. I think that's going to open soon.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. But
yeah,
the next slide, I had the chance to work with the High School Learning Center in Corning, and you know, the I'art project program was so cool to work with, and you could see that whole storyline on our Instagram feed, on Twitter feed. But I was able to work with the students there, help them design, and teach them my design process, show them the different characters, and they redesigned some of the characters because they wanted to tell their story. So we took my characters, I listened to their stories, redesigned the whole thing so that I incorporated what they were going through. And once we finalized the whole idea and the whole sketch of the mural, then we finished this in a week or so, and we painted really quick. The last days it rained, but we somehow made it, and it was a big celebration with the students because they pushed through, and it turned out really well. The mayor was there as a big celebration for the opening, and I can't wait to visit again and hopefully work with them to do another one. So the next one, we're just about the end now, and I know the ancient elders over at the Rockwell Museum now, so we're you know, samples of where the students could visit them in person. And the last slide is me going to sleep with one of my characters. But you guys, if you guys want to find out more about everything, you can look on you know, like all the social networks. If you go to Instagram, is where we post most everything from, or there's a sign up in our website that you could learn more and find out about things like the latest releases, like what I'm wearing or whatever. But there's, you know, just keep it up to keep up to date with what we're doing.
Is this authentic, real from life that you snuggle with some of your characters every once in a while?
That's how I feel after we finish an exhibition and like installing. It's just like, you just like want to crash out, and you wake up and then there's more pottery next to you. Like, what? It's just kind of, it's just a comment on that. It's
That's
kind of
so funny.
Oh, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I mean, it was like a run through more or less of what all these characters that you see, and hopefully, you know, inspire the next generation to learn more about what our history is here about the Pueblo Revolt, and just to understand it and be more open-minded and aware of everybody, and you know, pay it forward, spread the kindness, and just treat each other with respect. No matter, I mean, you know, we're more closer to one another than we are different. So just keep that in mind, and we don't know what the next person's going through, so treat everybody with respect and kindness, and you know, make this world go forward and how it should.
Yeah, thank you. We love that sentiment, obviously. So, but everyone who's watching, like, yes, that's the end of the kind of formal part of the talk, but we're not at all done, because we have plenty of time for questions, and then, like I said, there's gonna be one last kind of surprise at the end here. Usually I don't get to have surprises, especially during a virtual lecture. So this is like super fun.
We made it on time. Surprise. Yeah. If you guys have any
Yeah,
questions, I'll be happy to answer anything.
we made it on time in spite of mostly the Zoom glitches today. But I do have one question already that just came in, which I was wondering myself as well. But everybody, please start putting your questions in that Q&A. So the question is the status of the film or the vision for the film about the Pueblo Revolt. I've been wondering that too.
Yeah, we've been working on it for like over the past 2 decades of continuously. Like I never went to school for any of this, so I don't know what I'm, like how to make a movie. I don't know. So you just figure out trial and error from the ground up. But it's kind of funny because every show I release a new character that goes in my shows, and I designed 19 different groups of characters that represent the 19 pueblos that are still left in New Mexico today. So it's always being updated. The script is always being rewritten. The more people that I meet, the more people that give me a call, knock on my door, it just all comes together, and the project just keeps growing. So it could happen. I've been working with I've been fortunate to work with people like Disney and work with their Imagineers, and then get exposed to Marvel comics and DC comics. But I mean, it could happen in 3 years or in 10 years. Who knows? But it's all part of it, how it goes. But I just want to make sure that everything that you see here is all copyrighted, trademarked, registered, just so I'm in more control of, like, so that the characters won't change, and they keep their integrity of what I designed them to be.
Mm-hmm. I could so, especially now, like, and especially after Black Panther, because that was so huge and made such a big difference. I feel like, like it's so easy to imagine that as a like Avengers superhero movie, to have your characters be that same scale, like huge.
Right.
Yeah.
There's enough information and ideas for a saga, a 3-part saga.
Yeah, for real. I mean,
it's hard. I mean, it's better to go big, but set your goals as high as you can, because if your goal is this high and you're down here, and then you get to a certain part, middle of it, and you feel very happy, but you're like, oh man, why didn't it, make that goal that much higher? Because you can always come backwards. But yeah, it's kind of cool to just aim as high as you can, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, let me not get carried away, because I could. So I'll ask other people's questions. This is a great question. Have you ever considered partnering with Cirque du Soleil, because you are interested? You mentioned that circus was kind of something that interested you. Have you ever thought about partnering with Cirque du Soleil?
That was one of my prayers and one of my main things that I manifested since I was young. Especially because it just combined with our historic world of pottery making, like them capturing old school sideshow characters, and then me getting to fashion and designing more futuristic looking characters, and that would work perfectly. Unfortunately, they're all bankrupt now, circus, but I know it'll come. You just have to wait at the right time. So I know Vegas, and like everything else, is revamping and getting ready when we're safely again. It'll come. There's different opportunities, and I welcome them. So hopefully I get the chance to do that.
Well, it might not be big leagues as you, but I actually do know somebody who does run like a circus. She runs like a business doing circus in Hawaii. So
wow, so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that we might pair you up. I don't know. How about is there any, because you work in so many different media, is there any medium that you haven't worked in before that you're hoping to in the future?
I mean, they just kind of pop up out of necessity. Like, I used to hire people to help me with my graphics or to design, say, magazine ads or videos and stuff. And, hiring graphic designers, I would sit next to them and I'll watch them put together the ads. I could design them, I could do the fonts, I could do everything, but I just didn't know how to, I barely got like one computer, like maybe 7 years ago, 10 years ago. So, but sitting next to them, I learned how to do Photoshop and learned how to do all of the graphic design and really understand putting together an ad, or like, all these different Photoshops and stuff. And it's just trial and error. But I definitely welcome any ideas. Like, say, I wanted to create these characters. Like I've just recently started creating toys. So that will be a release in the future, but like how to be able to sculpt them out of, you know, the certain type of clay that you could cast out of resin or concrete or molds, and then, you know, finally start painting them and they'll develop into action figures and all, which I used to collect as a kid, like Star Wars, right? So there's all just these different ideas that are coming, and I just go with the flow, and if they're there and if they're in my head and they catch my attention, I push it and I try to learn it. But it's all coming together in the end again to just tell the whole story of what the Pueblo Revolt is about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That it comes up kind of as necessity. And there's a related question to that about like how you're working. And so at this point, are you, when you're making these concepts, do you sketch out, do you still kind of sketch on paper, like by hand, or do you sketch now, like how you move up to a digital process?
Yeah, I do both. Like I'm old school, so like I do a lot of sketching and all. I haven't really posted a lot of those on Instagram, but most of all because I forget when I'm creating something. It's like, you know, I know process videos that everybody enjoys, and I'm gonna try to remember to do more of that just to show the whole process, right? So some of them you can find on my Instagram of like the whole sketch process, how you do that. But a lot of the times, if I don't have, you know, if there's people around me or I book models to shoot, then I just go right for it. It's like, you know, I have my model there, I start body painting them, photograph them, get them digitized, and those are my sketches. So it just kind of bounces out everywhere, you know. You just kind of whatever you need at whatever time you need. I mean, if I can sketch, yeah, on paper I'll do that too. But it's just, don't hold yourself back. Don't think like you have to do one way, like this way is the right way, because you know it's different for everybody. And I never went to school for any of it, so I just kind of jump all over the place and make it work together. They all work in unison.
Right. We have a ton of questions. I'm gonna have to be picky about them, but we could always too, like Virgil's on social media, we could DM you and get answers and email them back to people. Like we could, yeah, we'll figure it out. But I'll ask this question that's a little bit complex, and then we'll switch gears. And the question is, could you speak a little bit more about time and how the future and past are connected? And this is somebody that's clearly, you know, like me, a super fan. She says, I'm fascinated by the concept of time jumping in the movie and the combination of Wewa and more modern individuals on your pottery, like those political works paired with those. Yeah.
I mean, it basically comes full circle because I always try to teach our history, right? I try to teach how it happened, and then coming into the present, and then the future version of it. But 2180 and 1680 are both working simultaneously, so they're both going through the Pueblo Revolt again, but just in a different time dimension. But like a lot of the characters from the future, say the aeronauts, right? I designed them that they're us in the future, so they're coming back from the future to the present time and visiting our history as well. But what they're doing is they're collecting shards and designs and our songs, our language, and taking them back into the future, storing them so that when we get this present time, when we get to the future, we still have our designs, our pottery, our knowledge are still intact of all the medicines and plants and animals and all that. So it's just I mean, you know, you're your own limit, so don't limit yourself.
Right. Yeah, and it just is like that, totally that idea of like 7 generations, and like that you think about having everything when you get to the future, like still having all your traditional plants and everything, like that's and
it's just a way to, you know, make people aware of like we have to take care of our earth mother, or otherwise she'll just like, you guys are gone, bye. But you know what, we just have to be more aware of how our ancestors, indigenous people, like really gives me a chance to teach with students like how much we were in tune with the earth and how we you know, we're protectors of the earth. But right now you see what's happening and it's just completely out of sync. So there will be worse stuff that, you know, once our earth mother gets pissed off, she's not going to stand it. So we just have to be more aware of what we're doing, pollution and all that stuff, and, you know, helping her go green and make, you know, she needs to go to a hospital as well, like we do.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, I mean, it's up to us. But Anywho, okay, I'm gonna stop the questions there, and I'm gonna see if we have just like a few more minutes, and I'm sure people will stay on if they can. But are you interested in showing us a little bit around your studio?
All right, let me flip it around so you don't see my ugly face.
We're all here for you. It's all right.
Turn it sideways. Can you see? Can you see?
Yeah, so everyone should put this now in speaker view so that you see him and not my face. Beautiful.
Okay. Here's a view of my studio.
So cool.
Yeah, it looks perfect, Virgil. It's great.
Okay, I'm glad. I just see a little tiny corner image of what I'm showing you guys.
No,
It
So
looks
great.
awesome.
It's great.
to figure that out. But I was able to work at the Tamarind Institute of lithographs, and I worked with Hotel. They're on display at Hotel Chaco, but the gallery is called Hojo Gallery, and they sponsored me to go and do some lithographs. And again, these are some of the characters that I did, and they're all available at Gallery Hojo.
Oh, I love that.
It was so fun to do that. And a lot of these ones that I have right now are the high fire pieces, which some of them are wood fired, some of them are soda fired, some are electric. Some I collaborated again, like with people like Daniel Romano, that he does like the still work on this. The wings are still the ceramic piece, the ceramic, but it looks metal. It's kind of cool. It's very like a mirror finish, right?
Oh, wow.
But it's like a collaborative piece. A traditional piece here, a Venusian soldier. So it's kind of cool to sculpt him halfway into the main body of the piece, but then also paint it to make it look like he's coming out of the piece and hiking. And then on the other side, it's a 2D drawing of it. So it's kind of cool to show different ways you can present a character. Some paintings, some of the wood fire pieces, more characters. And then utilitarian wear, like some of the runners in the future sculpted into that piece, as well as this one here. This piece belongs to whoa, listen, making sure I don't fall. The crash, no.
Fall right on top of that table of beautiful.
Yeah. Peter held his name out of Arizona, but we got this piece here. So yeah, there's like a whole different type of works that you can see. Some of these guys are going to museums. Some of them are saving for the next show.
Are you just like making new work all the time, just nonstop?
Yeah. Definitely. And I'm
you know
trying
how
to
some people have periods where they're slower and everything, like you're just nonstop, huh?
Yeah, I've never been bored in my life. And plus I have ADDs to give that credit to. So it's just kind of all over the place, but you know, the chaos is there, but it's controlled chaos. Some of these pieces came back from the Indigenous Futurisms that was at the Museum of Contemporary Native Art in Santa Fe. So some of them are still wrapped up in bubble wrap.
And do you see like a progression from the beginning of your career to like walking around your studio right now with us today? Is it like, wow, you know, I've come kind of so far, I have so many new, or is it just like it's just been a continuum all along? And
yeah, I don't even think that way, just because it just goes project to project. So I'm creating whatever, like, you know, for getting ready for the release of the our fall winter 21 line, you know, some of these cool women hoodies that have the design with the butterfly with the pottery designs on it. These ones are cool that have the cutout sleeves.
Oh, cool.
I can't wait to see them. So I'll be doing a photo shoot this weekend for this new line.
And is that just your own website that kind of merch is available, or is it only through stores, or how do people actually buy
It'll
these
be on the website. I mean, once again, like on Instagram, you could see the release of them. So
Mhm.
I'll just going through, making sure all the printing is right and looking at different sizes, picking them out for the models. They'll be shot in. You know, I don't really do a lot of color normally, but this year I'm pushing myself, like, you know, bring in bright fluorescent colors and red and pink and gray. Like the hoodie I was wearing today is red, but this one is a pink version of it.
Oh, cool.
Then here's a fluorescent one with different designs, but it'll be exciting to see all these ones on models and shot
Mhm.
properly. These guys are going out to a shoot in California. And again, the V-Maze design, but in a maxi dress. So these guys will be available soon too.
Wow.
So
Hmm.
there's a lot going on. Painting. Mono
Yeah.
prints over there, photography. It's just like all, there's a lot involved
This
in
is
everything.
so special. And you know what I'm thinking too is that I've seen your work in maybe like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 museums that, you know, just in my life. And like, I haven't ever seen an exhibition that it's like a full, you know, the whole gallery or whatever, a few galleries is all your work. And now I'm just like, well, I guess I just need to like, I don't know. I need to just
Let's go
stop.
have one at the Rockwell.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's make
I
that
mean, there's
happen.
definitely, I mean, it's really fun to incorporate everything, all the different
Mhm.
types of mediums that I work in, because then people understand how they all fit
Right.
together. Because if I try to explain it, they're like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Aliens? What? Fashion, this, jewelry, what? So it
Yeah,
all
it's
just,
true.
it all comes together in the end of once they get to experience how they all fit together. There's a glass piece from Corning, the wild spinach.
Ooh, love that. Yeah, because I've seen, right, like fashion in certain fashion exhibitions or like clay, obviously, or whatever. Yeah, but not, this is the first time I'm realizing that I've really seen everything in one place. And it's like you're saying, it helps you understand the work so much better.
Yeah, and during COVID, you know, it's a time to regroup and to, you know, start planning again what's all the different exhibitions.
Wow.
But it's a time to take a step back, get, you know, all ideas together, go
Right.
for it, never back down or slow down.
Wow, there's another one.
Except gaining weight though, for being in quarantine and this thing like, oh my god, I gained some LBSs here.
So our bodies are just trying to take care of us, you know?
Right.
Look at that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Another CMOG piece.
Wow.
So it goes to like furniture, all the different designs, but definitely
Wow.
cool.
Well, I feel like I have to let my people know that it's okay for them to go. So we're running
Yeah,
over.
sure.
I mean, I'm sure whoever's, you know, they don't want to miss anything special. So I'll have to just
Well, I'm
wrap
glad.
this up, even though we don't want
I
to.
hope we didn't go over too much, but at least
No,
you guys
no, not too much.
got
We
cool.
could have stayed here with you all night. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. And again, if you have any other questions that we couldn't reach on the Zoom, then just feel free to reach out on the website, or, you know, I'm usually on Instagram and
Okay.
Facebook. It gets me confused. So I usually post from Instagram and share it there. So.
Okay, good to know. We'll hit you up, and you're getting tons of love in our chat. Everybody says that it's amazing. We really appreciate it. And the studio tour was such a special treat. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody. I hope everybody's safe. You know, let's heal and get through this together. We're almost through it. Take care.
And then we'll bring you back to Corning as soon as we can.
I can't wait.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.